Hello, you're listening to Me and Paranormal You with your host, Ryan Singer. Because it's more fun to believe. Hey everybody, thank you for listening to another episode of Me and Paranormal You. This is your buddy Ryan Singer. This is going to be a third year bonus, even though it's kind of an interview, but it's not an interview. It is, how do I explain this? I'm currently in Florida at an unspecified location. And I think if you listen to this program, you know where I'm at probably. And I'm working on a project down here, and I've decided to use an excerpt from this project as an episode for this week as a kind of a teaser, because there's just so many incredible stories, and it's such an amazing journey in the lives of certain people that, have unexplainable or paranormal abilities, experiences, etc. And I feel like it's worth sharing before the other project is finished. And so what we're going to do is we're going to hear a bunch of stories from my buddy Carolyn here down in Florida about her life and a specific place where she used to live, I think, is the bulk of it. So that's going to be the majority of this episode, and I will do some editing. The audio quality, now granted, keep in mind something, that I was not recording this with the intention of using it for an audio podcast format. So I'm going to do my best to clean up the audio a little bit, but it's been recorded on my cell phone audio, just on my voice memo app, because I was going to be using it for something else. So keep that in mind when you're listening to the audio quality, but it should still be pretty good. And there's all kinds of different things, noises and nature and all kinds of things happening. So this is it's going to be it's going to be kind of raw audio, but I think it's worth it. And the stories are incredible. If you know anything about Carolyn, you already know that she's incredible, and the whole thing's going to be great. So thank you for listening. I hope you enjoy it. And just remember, patreon.com/Ryan Singer. That's where you can get commercial-free episodes of the podcast. So, and my tour dates were announced, by the way. You can go to goofballrun.com and you can see all the dates for the Goofball Run. So we're very excited about that. So that's December 4th, kicking off in Biloxi, and all the way till December 17th, where we end up in Fort Collins. So lots of fun shows with Dave Stone, Jeff Tate, and Gilbert Lowand. So it's going to be great. All of them have been on this program, by the way. So anyway, hope you're doing well. And there's an interesting thing that happens during this conversation, by the way. That was unexpected. So I'll just tease it with that.
Okay. So this is October 30th, 2023, third session. Childhood stories and other stories.
Well, as a child, I could do things, I thought, but I wasn't sure. Did I make that happen? I don't know. Why did that happen? Did I have anything to do with that? And it was just through thought. There was no prayers for anything. There was no rituals. It was just, I would think it, and it would happen. As today, I have to watch what I think. If I become very emotionally upset or very stressed, and I'm really would like something to help or stop that emotion, sometimes whatever I'm actually wishing, praying, hoping, well, not really praying, but thought, it happens. And I'll go through some of the stuff that are witnessed, I will say. So, not just me giving my word. There's witnesses involved. So, anyway, as a child, I remember, I don't know what age I was, but this was one of the most memorable things as a child. I was a very nature person. I mean, my mama had to call me out of the woods. We lived near a creek, near woods, as I was growing up, and in front of a cemetery. And she had to call me out of the cemetery, and she had to call me out of the woods all the time. And when she would call me, she'd call me Carolyn. I'd ignore her. Then it would be Carolyn Ann. I'd still ignore her. It'd be Carolyn Pickett. And I said, oh, Lord, here we go. Sure enough, she'd whistle. And if I got the whistle, I was just going to get a whooping. And it happened. So, anyway, I tried to get out of there before that whistle came. So, as a child, things would happen in the woods, and it was like, okay, that's strange, but I was just thinking that. I would love animals, and I would think, lots of times it was, oh, I'd love to see a raccoon when he'd show up, or I'd love to see a deer and they'd show up, or I'd love to have a cat and they'd show up. And I wasn't sure about it, but it was within minutes they would show up, and I'm thinking, am I doing this? Are they really showing up because I'm thinking this? And I threw it off. But the main thing that happened, I forget the age, what I was, I decided I needed a horse. And I had not told anybody.
You decided.
I decided I needed a horse. So I was the only child, and Mom and Daddy were pretty good about catering to me. So, because I was a good little girl, except I didn't come out of the woods in the cemetery. Mama called me. So, anyway, we were eating one night. We were having dinner, and Mama asked me, she said, what would you like for your birthday this year? And I remember thinking, now. So I said, I want a horse. And so she said, Carolyn, we lived in town. We didn't have room for a horse. And she said, we can't get a horse. And Daddy said, there's no way we're getting a horse. And I said, I just want a horse. And I'd love to have a white horse. And she said, and they kind of irritated me because they were laughing about it. We can't do that. We're living in town, and you don't need a horse anyway. Look how small you are, So that night, it was trash night, which I remember was always Monday nights. And Daddy had to take the trash out, and he would take it up to the road, and I would always help him. Or just sometimes there wasn't enough, I'd just follow him. So the back of our house was really high off the ground, so we had some steep steps up to the back door. And so he would always get the trash down. They kept it right there by the steps on the ground and pull it around to the front road. So I was going with him that night because I had a bag of trash, small stuff, and we're going down the steps, and I heard it the same time he heard it. And it was clunk, 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 clunk. Now remember, we lived in front of a cemetery. It was the backyard, and there was a fence line, and then at the fence line there was trees and bushes, so you really couldn't see the cemetery, but there was little points to where you could see a little bit, because I would go back there and watch funerals when they would have a funeral. And it was a black cemetery, so I enjoyed. They were good funerals. So anyway, we're hearing this kaplunk, 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 and he's looking and I'm looking, and all of a sudden, there was an area. It was kind of uphill a little bit from the road, from the cemetery, and I see this horse's head. I wasn't sure, and it was white. And my daddy saw it, and we had just had the conversation because we got up from the dinner table and was taking out the trash. And it stunned him so bad until I guess he couldn't. He said he didn't get to the trash can, and he took my little bag and he threw it over the railing, and he said, "Come on, you got to get back in the house." I'm thinking, but and anyway, I kind of got around him. And I went on to the fence line because the horse had stopped. The noise had stopped. And sure enough, there's a horse, a white horse, a big white horse.
On the street or in the cemetery?
In the cemetery. We lived in an area that was close to woods, and there was a cemetery there, and you drove up to the cemetery through a neighborhood. It was off behind us. And our house, you came down a road from the Highway 90, and it was probably took 2 blocks to get to our house, and there was very few homes there. And then you made a curve, and our house was kind of in the bottom right there. And Daddy had a garden off to the side, and then there was the wood line. And then behind us was the cemetery. And behind that, all around it was woods. And so I'm looking at this horse, and he comes, and he sees it, and he got to, come on, you're going to get in the house. I don't know why he was doing that. So he got me in the house, and he said, you stay here. And he went and got Mama and took her outside. Well, she comes in the house, and she's frustrated. And nobody ever said another word about it. They told me, he said, you just stay in the house the rest of the night. So I don't know if things happened that they had known about before with me and just didn't ever say anything. But it was like, okay, it was like they kind of were making me feel like it was my fault, that this horse showed up. And that's when it kind of hit me. Well, later years, not then.
How old were you?
Oh, goodness. I don't know, maybe 6.
Okay. So, and just to be clear, are there wild horses running around over in this neighborhood?
No. that I knew of. Somebody could have had a horse.
But there wasn't, seeing a horse randomly in the graveyard area or the backyard or wherever, this was not something that happened.
This was the first time that I knew of.
Immediately after having a conversation about wanting a white horse for your birthday.
Yeah.
To the point where your dad was so freaked out.
He was.
He was scared.
Yes.
That's why he wanted to grab you and put you inside. Is that fair to say?
But I wasn't. All I knew is I felt like it was my fault. I did something wrong, and I didn't know what I'd done because I didn't do that.
It sounds like they didn't have any explanation for you. So they just didn't want to talk about it.
No, and it was never talked about again.
Because they were both amazed and also unable to process what just happened. I guess.
But I'm just thinking maybe things had happened before that they saw that I didn't comprehend that I had maybe done that. I don't know. I couldn't tell you that. No, they never talked about this.
Not even later in life?
Never.
It wasn't a funny story they'd bring up?
No.
Like when you're older? Like, remember when you were a kid?
As far as I know, they never told anybody about it. I mean, they may have, but they didn't.
So would you characterize this as your first solid memory of manifesting something from thought?
If I did that, yes, that would be my first memory. That surely would, yes. But there were the other things through the years that I would catch, and I would have to really think about what I thought and said. But as far as knowing that there were strange things going on, that happened all the time because especially the house in Grand Ridge, a lot of activity in there with, I remember one time John and Tanya were watching television, and Tanya comes in the bedroom because it was during the time I was, not well. And she comes in there and she says, Mama, the fern just fell off the top of the bookcase. And I said, what? I had an arrangement of fern that was on top of the bookcase where the television set. It was in the entertainment center. It was actually an entertainment center. She called it bookcases because I kept books there. But anyway, she said that they were watching television and this fern fell down in front of the television. Now, this fern was not right at the edge of this entertainment center. It was back from the front. And somehow it moved forward and fell right there on the floor and scared her to death. And John was puzzled. So, anyway, things like that, they called me from work one night, from the house. I was at work. Mama, the handprints fell. And I'm thinking, what? And she said, the handprints that you had framed on top of the refrigerator. We were in the bedroom, and we heard some crash and went in there, and both framed handprints of them two. And I had framed Max, but I took it down and put it in my Bible. I still have it. And they were all upset. These two frames of handprints crashed on the kitchen floor and broke the glass.
Two separate frames.
Separate things. And then one night, we were all in bed, and there was this horrible crash in the utility room area, that kitchen area. When we got up, we realized it was in the utility room. And I had a box of vacuum cleaner tools. It wasn't a big box, but it was on top of the hot water heater, which was pushed back in like the wall area in the corner. So unless you moved it, it was not coming off the top of that. It was a round hot water heater. And it sat on top there for years and years. Well, we hear this crash and get up, and this box had been, everything in it was just strewn all over the utility room floor. I mean, no mouse or rat could have knocked that over because it was heavy. It was actually, I'm saying box, but it was a plastic container, and it was just out of the blue. And then the stereo system would come on at night by itself. In fact, the first time that Walker and Matthew and Elizabeth spent the night there after we got married, the stereo came on by itself in the middle of the night, scared us all. Scared them. I didn't hear it, but they did. Woke us up, and it was on. That would happen quite a bit. The girls had already moved out. They were gone. But it was just balls of light quite a bit. You'd be setting, and this happened here. We'd be watching this, like, the flashes of ball of light would appear and then disappear. That happened a lot. John had a coat of arms plaque. It was actually two swords, crossed swords with his family plaque. And it was in the hallway leading to the bedrooms. And it was on a large nail and had been there before I even moved in the house. It had been there for years and years. A large nail. And it was kind of, where you could not get that off unless you picked it up off of the nail. We're all in there eating dinner one night in the dining room, and some racket, and went down and looked in the hall, and there's a plaque on the floor. The nail still in the wall, just as it was put there to begin with. Thanks.
So the nail hadn't been bent or didn't fall.
And there was in the plaque, the back, it had a big thick wire in the back, to hold inside. Nothing. We just hung it right back on the wall.
And you don't remember any specific thing that was happening in the moment while you were eating dinner that?
Well, this was mainly, I started noticing most of this stuff after Mac was killed. In fact, I remember a comment that John had made after he was diagnosed with cancer, and we had started his treatments. And I think he hadn't been on the treatments long. He wasn't down. He was still up working. And I remember we were having a discussion about the treatments, and he was saying he was starting to feel a little fatigue, and he kept saying, I don't know if I want to go through these treatments. And I remember being shocked to hear that. And I said, well, John, they're telling us you have a 75% chance of making it. And he said, I just don't feel that. And I said, well, don't you want to just try it? And it was a wasn't an argument. It was like a really strong disagreement. And all of a sudden, he starts smiling. And I'm thinking, and I said, what's wrong? And because we were in a little bit of a heated discussion there, and he started smiling. And I said, what's wrong? This is not funny. He said, no, I'm not smiling about this. He said, there's an angel standing behind you. And I said, what? And I'm thinking he's losing it. Well, as I turn, I see this flash of light behind me. I did not see an angel, but I saw a big glow of light behind me. So, but he swears it was an angel. He said it was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. And so I'm thinking, okay. But we had a lot of paranormal stuff going on in there. I'm thinking, okay. But it was like she was smiling, he said, and I was upset, and he started smiling. And he was comfortable with it. I mean, it was like he was just pure comfortable with it instead of being amazed and, oh, my God, nothing like that. He was just real comfortable with it.
But to be clear, John wasn't when you met him, wasn't a guy who's like, oh, let's talk about ghosts.
Oh, no. John really wasn't that. He wasn't a spiritual person much at all. And he didn't believe in any, well, like I said, he didn't even believe my dog could work when I trained the dog. But no, he was very grounded and stern law enforcement. He'd worked in it like 35 years.
Would you say he was agnostic or atheist?
No, he was not that, but he was just not a outgoing religious or spiritual person at all. He did go to church at times, but he was not...
kind of a materialist?
Yeah, pretty much.
Like living in the physical world and around him?
That was it. So, but he wasn't arrogant, no narcissism about him at all. He was very empathetic because he was paramedic, but he was... And I don't know, was that from his... I don't know what caused it, but he just really... There was no discussion of religion or anything at any time with him. Or any paranormal type stuff. Although it was going on around us, it was always, oh, I don't know, there's no, there's a reason, but I couldn't tell you what it is. It's like that. So, but that was... Oh, I got chill bumps. I mean, I couldn't really believe that had just happened because I didn't see what it was. I just saw this glow of light. And it was gone. When I started turning, it was going away at the time I was disappearing then.
Did it ever come up again?
Never that I know of.
Or he never mentioned it again?
Saw it. He never said it again, nothing. And to me. But... there's a lot of things that my son, before he was killed, it was like probably a week. It may have been 2 weeks. It was then a few weeks before he was killed. And we was watching television. And I was in the kitchen. It was like this room, all one room. And I'm in the kitchen working, cooking, and he jumps up and runs by me. The kitchen sink faced the backyard, and the garage door was over behind me to the right. And so he comes running around behind me to the door, and he's trying to open the door, and for some reason it wouldn't really open. And he was old enough he could open the door. He was right at, he had just, in fact, his birthday was that weekend, because I remember when I'll tell you that story in a minute. Anyway, because it was that weekend, because I remember it was his birthday that weekend. We'd had a party there at Mama's for him. And he was trying to open the door, and it wouldn't open, and so I walked over there, and about the time I get there, he got it open, and he said, come in. Well, I'm trying to see who, I was turning, trying to see who was out there. There was nobody there. And I looked, and I'm looking in the garage. I said, well, where'd they go? And he said, I don't know. There was a man there, and he's gone now. I said, well, who was he? He said, I don't know. I said, well, what did he look like? And he said he was in uniform. And I said, what kind of uniform? And he said, I don't know what kind of uniform it was. It wasn't a police uniform, but it was a suit-like uniform. So I walked out in the yard looking. It was dark, so I had to get the flashlight. And we were looking around. There's no car, nothing. And so I come back in, and I'm thinking, well, what was that all about? Somebody's messing around. But the way he talked, it may have been like a military uniform, because he said he had a hat, and it was like a police hat, but it wasn't a police. He had seen pictures of us and of John in uniform with the, they wore the same type hat as a Marine would wear, naval Marines. And so I remember him talking later. He said, it's like those pictures back there of John. And he would have his law enforcement suit on with his hat. So I don't know. I have no idea who it was. But the next day, we took him home to Gary's. And as I was leaving, he grabbed me and he hugged me like he'd never hugged me before. And I said, Mac, are you okay? He said, Mama, I just want to let you know how much I love you. Well, he was killed the next weekend. And I had talked to him through the week, but that's the last physical time I saw him. And he knew something. Because I got back in the car, and I was kind of upset, and I said, something's wrong with Mac. He said, I said, well, what is it? I said, I don't know, but he's hugged me like he wasn't going to let me go. And I didn't move. I just, I was continuing hugging him until he finally let go. He said, yeah, I was wondering what's taking so long. I saw him hugging me. And I said, I don't know. Something's wrong. So I'm thinking maybe problems at home, but I'll never know. So, but that was just so weird. Because Mac was not like that. He never imagined, made up stuff like that, ever. So, I didn't hear anything. I don't know if he heard something. What he told me, he said there was a knock at the door. I remember that. And he said there was somebody knocking at the door. He was trying to open the door, and I'm thinking, what? And I said, what you doing? He said, somebody's at the door. And then I remember him saying, somebody's knocking at the door. And I didn't hear a knock.
And then he got it open. That's when he said, come on in.
Yeah. And I knew somebody was there, but I didn't hear him knock. But there was nobody there. And I naturally went searching and all. Nothing. But then there was a time I remember John, and this was after he was ill. This was before the angel incident. He had just been diagnosed with it, and he was at the door. The doorbell rang at the back den, and he went to the door, and I didn't go out there. And he came back in. He said, the oddest thing just happened. I said, what? He said, this old couple were at the door. And he said, I didn't know who they were. And he said it was like they were from a past time. I said, what do you mean a past time? He said, the old man had on overalls and an old shirt. And John was very observant. He said he had old boots on, like they were, he was a farmer. And the woman had on an old dress like our grandmothers would have worn, because he described it as, just a flare skirt, and she had her hair in a bun. Both of them were gray-headed, and the old man, and her, they were just there at the door. And when he opened the door, he asked them, he said, can I help you? And they said to him, no, we just know about you, and we just want to stop and see how you were doing and tell you hello, but we're going to be on our way. And he said the man nodded his head at him, and they walked off. And there was no car there, and John's watching, and he said he was going to come get me because he was come tell me he was going to take these people wherever they needed to go, and they weren't out there when he went back. He said, "You got to come see these people." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Because they're kind of strange, and I'm going to take them where they got to go because they don't have a vehicle out here." He said, "I don't know how they got there." So he was going to take them, give them a ride, and they were gone.
Was that at night or during the day?
That was during the day. That was in broad daylight. So
just want to let you know that we know about you.
We know about you and see how you're doing.
So this
Weird.
house that where you were living,
it was
has
right on the highway.
multiple
on
visitors,
69th.
multiple strange visitors.
Yeah. Well, this happened to Matthew. He was up one night. We had gone to bed. And he's in there watching television, and somebody started knocking on the door. And he didn't come get us. He was in high school. And
so who's this?
This is Matthew. This was Bill's son.
Oh, okay.
And he would get them on Thursday through Monday, every other week, and then every Thursday night. But anyway, he would bring them home on Thursdays after work because he still worked in Quincy. He had his office there in Quincy. And the kids went to Robert F. Monroe School in Mount Pleasant. So he would come get them either from his mama's or school, from their mamas or school, and bring them, for the weekend. And when he'd go to work on Friday mornings, he'd drop them off at school. But anyway, Matthew was in there watching television one night. And I don't know if it was a school night or not, I don't remember. But the next day he told us that somebody came to the door knocking. And he went to the door. And there was this lady standing there, and she said she needed some help. Her car had broke down. So he was going to come get us, and I don't remember whether she hollered, "It's okay," and he stopped, or she said, "Don't." She said something. I don't remember exactly what she said. But he stopped before he came to the bedroom, and he was going back to see, why she had hollered at him like that, and she was gone. So anyway, strange thing.
Wait, that same house?
That same house.
Wait, so I'm confused. So who's Matthew again?
Matthew is Bill's youngest son.
Okay. And but this was the house where you lived with John?
Yes. And
so after John died, you still lived there. Gotcha.
And
so this was years later.
Bill and he showed up.
You hear that?
What was that?
That was very loud.
I know, but what was that?
I put my foot up on this thing, but
nothing.
I didn't shake the house.
No, this was up that area.
That shook the house.
Yep.
Should we go outside and look?
We can.
Not?
We can.
I mean, it sounded like it was kind of from that side, right?
Oh, yeah. That's usually the bad side.
I mean, it almost was like somebody was knocking.
Yeah.
Almost like, because we're talking about all these visitors. I mean, that was loud. It almost kind of felt like it was almost reminiscent of like an earthquake to a certain degree, but very obviously concentrated in that one area. That was strange.
Well,
unless the
not
air
really.
Does the air conditioning
no,
rattle?
The air conditioner's over there and it does not rattle. No, it's on the ground.
I mean, it's strange if it wasn't here.
Yeah, it was here, but that's nothing strange for me.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I mean. It's an unexplained noise, but it's commonplace.
Yeah. You never made me get used to that stuff. But yeah, I heard it.
Okay, yeah, because I didn't know if you'd heard that.
Yeah, I heard it. I just didn't say anything. I had my hearing aid on. So.
Oh, okay. And there was that bird out earlier. I don't think it's going to affect... And obviously, it's not going to affect the recording because I'll be able to hear you. But did you hear it? The one that was crying out there?
Probably the cat aggravated it.
Yeah, let me just peek out this window here, too. Yeah, it was like right up here.
Mm-hmm. Now, see, that's where we see the firebombs a lot. what I call fire, light bulbs, whatever anybody wants to call
Oh yeah, now I hear the cat again.
them. Right now.
I hear the cat again now.
Do you?
Or wait. Yeah.
He's crying.
I'm going to leave this recording, but I'm going to use the bathroom real quick.
He heard us go outside.
Oh yeah, so he's like, hey, you guys are out here?
Yep. He's probably out here in this door. Yep, he's out here in the deck.
Oh. Interesting.
Well, I didn't react because I didn't want you to get disturbed.
Oh no, you don't have to worry about that.
Okay. All right.
You know, I think what would disturb me more is if I'm experiencing things
No,
that no
you
one
heard
else
it.
can hear.
You heard it.
I'm going to pour a little more soda because this could be a good part to use for my podcast.
Okay.
This whole thing, you telling those stories and
And
then
then
this
it
thing
happens.
happening. This is interesting. I mean, that's fascinating to me
That's fine.
because we're talking about visitors, right?
Yeah. Mhm. They lived there for 10 years. No, they lived there, let's see. They lived there for 17 years.
Hmm.
And like I said, they moved in the first of 93 before Matt got killed. And they were there through John's illness and all. It was a huge, comforting time for me to have my mom and dad right there through both issues. So, but anyway, there was a lot that went on in that house. I remember there was one time that his mom was doing some genealogy work on John's family. And we would go to the church, of Latter-day Saints, the Mormon church in Marianna, because they did ancestry research, and you could go in there and they'd show you what they had. So he was a hatcher, and so she decided she wanted to do some research on her family, which was Mitchell and Hatcher. So I'd take her over there and, she'd do her studies, and I'd go, they had a library, and I pretty much stayed in the library a lot. But anyway, I don't know how she found out about this, but she found out, I guess through this research, that there was an old cemetery up the highway from where we lived on 69. And so she wanted to go find it because it was some of John's relatives. That's Bill. He's coming in. It's going to get some more. You're going to have some more alarms, if that's okay.
Yeah, it'll be fine.
But anyway, she wanted to go find the cemetery, so we did. We found it, and it was in a pasture, but it was in tree lines. There was a big area of trees there. And we're out there looking for this cemetery, and we're on somebody's property. But we found it. Now, this was what was so odd. There was a mom and a dad and a child. Now, this child had a tombstone different from the mom and dad. And it was a pyramid-like tombstone. It was, I don't know what you would call it. It had a point at the top and the four sides, and it was tall. It was real, it wasn't that small, but it wasn't that large either. It was a child. And I kid you not. Now, the mom and dad it was there in the 1800s, early 1800s, and he had died as a child. And his was in the 1800s, but he was later. And this stone, I kid you not, was as white as a piece of paper. It did not age at all. So she decided she had to have that tombstone. And I'm thinking, oh, goodness, we're going to get put in jail because she's got to have this tombstone.
Because this is part of her family?
This is part of her family. Well, it was on somebody else's property. It was farmland. And she said, nobody's going to know it. I said, I can't take that, B. I can't do that. She said, yeah, can you get it? Allaby was her name, and everybody called her B. And I said, I can't take that. And she said, well, I'm going to get it. I said, oh, God. So she put it in the car. And when she went home, we had come in the house and we were, discussing stuff and all, mainly that. But when she left, she didn't take it with her. She forgot it. And so John got home, and I was telling him about it when he got home. And later on, she called. She said, I left that tombstone in your car. I said, oh, God. And what she did, she had left it in the car. So John wanted to, so we went up there to look at it. So, hello.
Hey.
Hey there.
How you doing?
Doing good.
Have y'all talked?
We're doing that now.
Oh, it's all right.
It's okay.
Okay. I'm going to take the trash while
Okay.
I'm thinking about it.
All right.
Y'all had a good day?
We.
So we go out there, and John, she wasn't able to come get it. John didn't feel like taking it down there, so he brought it in the house. I was going to put it in the house. I made him put it in the garage. So things started acting funky around there. I mean, it was like doom. And I remember that night it had been cold, and that's why we were out looking for it during that time, because it was cold. And you don't have to worry about snakes so much. So I remember that night he tried to start a fire in our stove, our fire stove thing. And it wouldn't start, and it wouldn't start, and it wouldn't start. It'd start up and go out, start up, go out. This was all night, so he finally just gave up. And we turned on the main unit. So, and it felt cold all night long. And he had a call, a fire call that night. And so I was there alone, and it just, I just kept thinking I'm hearing voices, but I'll throw it off. No, you just imagine and stuff. So anyway, just little things would happen. There was knocking going on. We'd get up and the refrigerator door was open one morning. Cabinet doors would be open. The stereo came on anyway, but it would come on quite a bit. TV would come on. And so I'm thinking, okay, there's that tombstone out there. And the utility room is where he put it, moved it out of the garage. And I said, it's got to go. So I told him, I said, we got to get this tombstone back. You just got to explain to your mom, I'm not having this tombstone in my house. So he said, yeah, I agree, because things aren't right around here. I feel it too. So we took it back to the cemetery where it was. Well, when we took it back, there was a man there. And he owned the property. And he knew John. And John said, listen, my mama came out here. She found this cemetery. And she had to have this tombstone. He said, that tombstone? And he said, yeah, I know where it was. He said, that don't look like the tombstone. And he said, well, it is. He said, this tombstone that was there was not that pretty. And I didn't say nothing. And John said, well, we're going to put it back. And he said, well, y'all must have cleaned it up. And I didn't say nothing. John didn't either. So we left it there. Well, his sister came for a visit. And she was staying with the mom, and they got to talk about the tombstone. So she wanted to see it. So Miss Hatcher called, and she wanted us to all go. It was Sunday afternoon after lunch. And they were going to come by and go to the cemetery. And she said, y'all need to come go with us. So we went with them. We get to that place, and that stone had aged to the same liking of the other two stones. And she saw that, and I saw that. And as soon as she saw it, she turned, she said, oh, we're getting out of here.
What?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you. It was the weirdest thing. But after we took it back, it kind of calmed down. We had experience before and after, but it kind of calmed down. But, it's like here, it's constant. Something is always happening. And it's almost daily.